I believe that somebody my niece, just like they her mother.
Strictly for the purposes of financial gain for those who have access to her estate, including Clive Davis.
We are a society that thrives on spectacle, headlines, and the dramatic fall of public figures. But what happens when the stories we consume hint at something far darker? An industry-wide web of power, control, and silence. Whitney Houston's demise in 2012, followed by her daughter Bobbi Kristina's eerily similar death just 3 years later, has long haunted the public consciousness. Both were found submerged in bathtubs, their lives cut tragically short. To some, these were coincidences, tragic but isolated events. To others, they were the byproducts of personal struggles and the pitfalls of fame. But a growing number of voices are now asking, was there something much more sinister at play?
And her and Clive had a fight 2 days before. And from what I was told, Bobbi Kristina was present for some of that.
Story begins not just with a superstar and her daughter, but with the shadowy figures who stood behind the glittering facade of their careers. Clive Davis, the acclaimed music mogul who discovered Whitney and orchestrated much of her meteoric rise, looms large in the narrative. And then there is Diddy Holmes, a man whose career has been defined by both astronomical success and increasingly disturbing allegations. What if, as some now suggest, their demises were not the tragic accidents we were led to believe, but the result of a calculated conspiracy driven by greed, power, and a deeply entrenched culture of exploitation?
Leola Brown, Bobby Brown's sister, has said on several occasions that she was beaten.
Stunning development. Federal investigators have reopened the cases of Whitney Houston and Bobbi Kristina, citing new evidence and testimony that could unravel what has been called one of the entertainment industry's most tightly guarded secrets. The FBI's decision to re-examine these demises comes after years of whispers and speculation, rumors of foul play that were long dismissed as conspiracy theories. But now, what was once shrugged off as tabloid fodder is being treated with the seriousness of a federal investigation. At the core of it all are questions no one dared to voice openly. Why did two women from the same lineage perish under such remarkably similar conditions? And why does the trail of unanswered questions lead back to two of the most powerful men in the music industry? Whitney Houston's demise on February 11th, 2012 sent shockwaves around the world. Found in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, her death was ruled an accidental drowning, exacerbated by years of substance use and heart disease. The timing was chilling, just hours before her mentor, Clive Davis, was to host his annual pre-Grammys party in the same hotel. Many remember the eerie juxtaposition: Whitney's lifeless body upstairs, while stars toasted to the music industry below. But the details of her final hours and the motivations of those closest to her have remained murky. Insiders have long whispered that Whitney had become a liability to powerful figures in the industry. Her struggles with addiction made her unpredictable, uncontrollable. Was her demise truly an accident, or was it a convenient way to silence a star who no longer fit the narrative her handlers needed?
Piece of a lot of what happened during direct testimony were freak-offs. And what the prosecution tried to show was that he forced and or coerced her into doing these freak-offs. And we've talked about this earlier this week, that at least my opinion is that in a lot of these, the prosecution just didn't close the loop. It was something she...
3 years later, Bobbi Kristina Whitney's only child would be found in almost identical circumstances. On January 31st, 2015, she was discovered unconscious in a bathtub in her Atlanta home. She never regained consciousness and passed away 6 months later. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Both women were surrounded by troubling relationships, financial disputes, and the relentless pressures of fame. Both left behind questions that no one seemed eager to answer. And now, with the FBI reopening the case, those questions appear poised to finally shake the foundations of the industry that profited from their talent. The investigation's renewed focus on Clive Davis brings a chilling new dimension to the story. Davis, often celebrated as a genius of the music world, was more than just Whitney's mentor. He was the architect of her career, and by some accounts, her personal life as well. His influence over Whitney was so pervasive that some have described it as a form of control. Financially, Whitney's career was a goldmine for Arista Records, the label Davis helmed. But by the time of her demise, her earning potential had diminished and her battles with addiction had become public knowledge. Could it be that her death, while tragic, served a financial purpose for those who stood to gain from her catalog, her legacy, and her silence?
Honest, violent, horrible. A promiscuous swinger who lied to and cheated on multiple partners. Incredibly, that's how Sean Diddy Combs' own lawyers described the billionaire music mogul, currently facing serious trafficking charges in a New York court.
Adding to the intrigue is the alleged involvement of Sean Diddy Combs, a man whose name has become synonymous with both success and scandal. While Combs' connection to Whitney and Bobby Christina might not seem obvious at first glance, investigators are reportedly probing links between him, Davis, and a broader network of industry players who have long operated in the shadows. Recent courtroom leaks suggest that Diddy may have played a role in covering up critical details surrounding both demises. And insiders have hinted at an even darker possibility that Diddy, under Davis's influence, may have been directly or indirectly complicit in actions that led to their untimely ends. Courtroom developments over the past year have only added to the growing sense of unease. Testimonies from former insiders, leaked documents, and resurfaced interviews have painted a damning picture of an industry where loyalty is bought, silence is enforced, and power is wielded without accountability. One witness, whose identity has been kept anonymous for fear of retaliation, described a culture of fear and manipulation surrounding both Davis and Diddy.
Let's talk about the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible things.
Diddy's own legal troubles have reached a fever pitch, with allegations ranging from financial fraud to human trafficking. His once untouchable empire, once a symbol of triumph, is now under siege. As federal agents raid his properties and uncover mountains of evidence, the question is no longer if Diddy will fall, but how far-reaching the consequences will be. And yet, as investigators dig deeper, it's becoming increasingly clear that Diddy may not be the mastermind, but a pawn in a much larger game. The real puppet master, many believe, is Clive Davis, a man whose public image as a benevolent kingmaker belies the darker accusations now surfacing against him. The courtroom drama is unfolding like a thriller, with new revelations emerging almost daily. Testimonies from legal experts and former employees have described a vast network of financial arrangements, shell companies, and coercive tactics, all designed to protect the powerful while exploiting the vulnerable. Leaked emails and documents suggest that efforts to suppress the truth about Whitney and Bobby Christina's demise began almost immediately after they occurred. And as the investigation grows, so does the list of potential co-conspirators, individuals who may have played smaller roles but were crucial in maintaining the veil of secrecy.
The things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
As we peel back the layers of this story, one thing becomes disturbingly clear. Whitney Houston and Bobby Christina were not just victims of their personal struggles or the pressures of fame. They were casualties of an industry that has long operated above the law, where the lives of artists are secondary to the profits they generate. The reopening of their cases is not just about seeking justice for two women. It's about exposing a system that has thrived on silence, exploitation, and the belief that some people are simply untouchable. But what happens when that system begins to crack? What happens when the truth, no matter how horrifying, starts to come to light? For Whitney Houston, for Bobby Christina, and for countless others whose stories have yet to be told, the answers may finally be within reach. And for the men who have long held the reins of power, the reckoning they never thought possible may now be inevitable. Stay tuned. The story is just beginning.
Afraid of coming forward. They've been afraid of what he could potentially do to them within the industry, what he could do to them professionally, maybe even personally. And so yes, it's been a dark secret they've held on to for a very, very long time.